right, Wolfpack Nation, we are back for part 2, y'all, of our interview here and discussion here with Joe Giglio, a friend of the show, and again has been with us a couple of years in a row now. I think it's his third year in a row. You can always check out him and Joe Uvi's new venture specifically on YouTube. I mean, again, we're a YouTube channel primarily, and so I got to give a shout out more to the YouTube side because, again, it's always nice to see the people and see, their conversations rather than just hearing it, right? I mean, that's always been at least my thing. Is like the podcast sounds like great if you're riding down the road or standing a fence like me, for example, where you're just, you can't really watch, but you can listen. But I mean, to see it is definitely a different experience. Have you got any kind of feedback like that, Joe? That's a little bit better to see you guys talk through it all? Like, have you guys kind of got any feedback like that?
It's mostly been on the podcast side, which is good.
Oh, dang it.
I'm 48. Okay. The youths, I feel like, prefer to download it and have it and drive in the car and listen. So, yeah, I'll take all downloads.
That's it. They all count, right?
You name it, I'm there. We got it.
That's right.
Yeah, in fact, I was listening to you guys on the way to Columbia last week, so I had you on there for a couple of episodes, so I enjoyed those.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
But do you? I was gonna just ask real quick. Did you, when you got into like the print side of the house, because that's where you made your bread and butter? Did you ever think, 15, 20 years from then, you'd be doing a podcast and because when you first got into print, like there really wasn't podcast, right? So, or maybe it might have been in its infancy.
One of my proudest moments is there's a picture from, I think it's the 2004 Duke Carolina game over at Cameron, and you guys might be old enough to remember this, you might not be.
I was in the military. We're good.
When you covered games back then, everybody had a notepad and they had out to press row. And I think it was 2004. There's a picture that Jay Billis had put out I think it was 2 years ago. You see one person with a computer, and it was me. And I remember Lennox Rawlings and Colton Tudor and some of the other great writers in the state being like, why do you have your computer with you? Why don't you, that you write after the game, Joe? You know this, right? And not in a bad way, just like, hey, this, and I would try to explain to them because I started, believe it or not, what was a N&O's first blog, a major outlet's first blog in the state. And it was like, wait, what is this? And it's like, dude, it's just the same thing you're doing. You're just doing it in real time. So if you were to say to me, would I be doing a pod? No, I would probably not. But I would say quite proudly that I've always kind of been ahead of the curve a little bit. So I'm happy to still be there.
Yeah.
Well, and of course you say that, you say that, Joe, but it took you probably 3 or 4 episodes to get a daggone good microphone, man. I mean,
it did. It was
I remember that too.
At least 2 weeks.
Yeah. So, Joe, I do want to kind of get into here. Obviously, I've always been a fan of yours. Specifically, the highlight of at least my favorite moments for sure was back in what year was it? 2016, I believe it was. Mark Godfrey's last year. And man, you did your best work that year I've ever seen, man. Like, dude, asking Mark Godfrey, you do know that fans aren't going to see a loss to Boston College as improvement, right? And then your famous after losing to Georgia Tech, we got to choose to play tougher. And you were like, what are you seeing? And I'm like, yes, Giglio, yes, stick it to this guy. This guy's saying we got to choose to play tougher. Like, what do you mean choose? Saying, no, you are going to play tougher. You are going to play defense. Like, yeah, absolutely right. So, yeah, no, for sure. So, but it was kind of funny because I was listening to I don't know why it came up on my recommendations, but I watched the beginning part. I didn't watch the whole thing of Mark Gottfried's announcement as head coach, and of course he brought up the dream of playing in the greatest show on earth, and of course I slapped my forehead, being like, oh my god, like again, like I think that maybe 10 years ago when he was hired, that obviously at that point it only had been 20 years since we won any kind of championship, but now I feel like that 30 years in, it's like, listen, win the ACC, and then guess what? If you win the ACC, you get to the tournament. Mind blown. And so, I mean, I know that Keys doesn't really talk too much about, necessarily the importance of like, winning a championship specifically, but I know that you have had conversations from him for sure. Do you kind of get that sense of that he understands the pressure and the importance of the ACC championship? Because again, it's much more likely to win ACC championship. I don't know if you know this or not, than win a national championship, I would say.
Yeah, I think with Kevin, it's hard when you've won it. And Mark was an assistant at UCLA. Kevin was an assistant at Louisville. And, when you have a chance and you experience it, you think, well, this is it. This is what I want. And it almost would take, in my opinion, and I'm not interested in Kevin going anywhere, but it would almost take Levi being the head coach. It would take Justin Gainey being the head coach. It would take Archie being the head coach. It would take someone coming back and being like, when Maryland won the ACC tournament in 2004, it was like the equivalent to them of winning the national title in 2002 because they hadn't won the ACC championship under Gary Williams. So it was a really big deal. And I think anyone who's been through the program or understands NC State history, shout out to Scott Wood, who does, what's going to be Law of the Wolf now with me. And he's quickly become an NC State fan. Like he dropped a Chris Paul nut punch on me during the basketball season. And I'm like, were you even alive for the Chris Paul nut punch? And he was like, oh, I State fans, I know about it. And I'm like, okay, all right. I'm proud of you. So I just think it takes someone who's kind of been around it, but that doesn't diminish what a coach thinks of that, of the accomplishment. I think it's hard. And I thought Giannis Antetokounmpo put it best, right? After this year, I think someone asked him if he thought the year was a failure. They had the best record in the NBA during the regular season. And he had said to them, Michael Jordan played in the NBA for 15 years. He won the championship 6 times. So were the other 9 years a failure? Right. And Giannis is obviously in a position where they've had some success, and obviously Michael Jordan had success. But it is, when you look at it, you're like, that's why I said to you, it's the dumbest stat of all time. That not once have they been able to fall backwards into this thing when even every other college seemingly has. That's the part of it that doesn't make any sense. You go back, man, we could really open some wounds here, but you go back to like 2003 with J.J. Redick hitting 4 million threes. This is before J.J. Redick was really J.J. Redick, by the way. You go back and you look at Torrey Smith and Maryland in 2010, and you're like, wait.
I gotta go.
Right. Have these moments. Of course, all of the 27 inning games that Elliott's played, and all the other nonsense that we've seen in different.
Yeah, you look at the Coastal game that year. Yeah. I mean, you have
can't do it. Yeah. So, but it just doesn't really make any sense. But I do think I don't. Like for example, Dave Doran, like last year, I don't think he went into the year thinking, oh, we're going to go 8-4 and it's going to be okay with this group. Or even the year before, remember where a Miami loss is what ultimately cost them a chance to play for the conference championship. I just think
you're cutting me deep, Shrek.
I just think it's hard as a coach to try to keep your players focused on maybe something as elusive as that, when the fans understand it more than the players do. And that doesn't mean the players don't care. It just means the coach doesn't care. It just means the coach's job is to motivate the players
in
that moment. And I think that's one of the things I've learned most from Kevin. And that is, especially this generation of basketball players, it's not an original point, but it really is the truth. They play so much basketball. And they go to these AAU tournaments. They play 3 games in a day, and you're like, well, you lost 1 game. And you're like, oh, we got another one in 2 minutes. Yeah. So it doesn't necessarily – and now, of course, with the portal and players leaving and guys moving around, the idea that you're going to find players who understand your school's history is pretty far-fetched.
Well, case in point, you had Jarkel wearing the Jordan jersey last year, right?
Yeah.
Honest mistake. Didn't know anything.
Yeah.
You know, just wearing a jersey. We're wearing some gear. And so, you know, and I think that's the greatest point you can make is you want to go get guys that fit your culture and fit your scheme, but aren't so caught up in all the history, right? Because at the end of the day, that's all outside noise to them. Like they're there to do their job. They're, you know, let's be real.
Yeah. Well, and especially because, again, I mean, like if next year the men's basketball team wins the ACC championship, to them, they'll be obviously very excited about it. They'll be like, hey, we're going to the tournament, baby. Let's go. But then in the meantime, back in Raleigh, everything is going to be on fire. Everybody's going to be kissing everybody. Like mayhem will be erupting as if like it is December 31st, 1999. Like it is going to be chaos, and that's going to be awesome. So looking forward to that. But I do got to, Joe, you know, per tradition, we definitely got to have a conversation about football.
Okay.
And, you know, obviously, Joe, if you've seen, or, you know, anybody who's seen any of our live streams recently knows that I am like the guy that, even though it will never happen, I am the guy that is pushing like crazy for 100% acceptance of Coach Doran being head football coach at NC State, because I'm like, there is no way you can make a realistic story, you know, explain to me why Coach Doran should not be head coach. And like to me, it almost is the level of like the video that Joe Ovies made about Rod Brindamore being like, oh wait, you're asking if Rod Brendamore's on the hot seat? No. Yeah, like just like that's it. Like case point, no, he's not on the hot seat. And so for me, with Coach Doran, I mean, having multiple 9-win seasons, should have had a 10-win season if UCLA had some, you know what's, which they're definitely paying at right now. And, you know, also too, having just one of the, like there is so much excitement around the football program with the new scoreboard, you know, the new sound system, having guys like Peyton Wilson come back, which if you asked me 2 years ago, if he was coming back last year, I would said, probably not. And now he's coming back another year, and then having Brennan Armstrong, who was a borderline Heisman candidate last year, 2 years ago. I mean, could you make any kind of case besides the obvious one of not winning AC championship that for Coach Doran to not be head coach NC State?
No.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Simple. Yeah. One word answer, Joe. We'll leave it at that.
Yeah. I mean, I think most people have accepted what Dave is and what his limitations are, but also what his upside is, and what
you'd be surprised. I know you're around social media, Joe. I'm sure you've seen as many people calling for Dave Doran's head, just like myself, especially after the Boston College
after
loss.
last year.
Especially after the Boston College loss.
Yeah, the Boston College loss. That was
but I don't know of a penalty that should have been called and is not called and would never be called like 100 times, 100 different stadiums. Like those are the kind of things like I don't blame coaches for. I mean, I thought the Syracuse game was not his finest hour. Like they went into the game thinking they were going to win with like a safety and a blocked punt. Like you can't do that in 2023. But no, I mean, I think we can accept in 10 years now what Dave is and what he isn't. And,
yeah,
you know, I would love for him to have that breakthrough. I do wonder, you know, hopefully Robert and I will have a little bit of a different element and maybe might have a stronger voice than either Tim Beck or even Eli. So we'll see. We'll see how it all turns out. There's no reason to like, you know, let's not get. Do we have to get crazy already?
No.
Okay.
No, absolutely not.
All right. Well, okay. Well, I mean, we can.
I haven't heard that much about. Most of what I heard and talked about last year with Dave was the opportunity for him to leave.
Right.
Because I do. He is someone that other programs would want, but obviously he's comfortable with not only the school and the area, but I think he does kind of get what it would mean to, you know, finally climb that mountain and win the ACC championship here.
But Joe, you know this fan base. I mean, you've taken their calls for many years, so you can get why they would potentially say the things that they say.
Oh no, the tissue
Yeah,
works.
I think state fans are more rational than they get credit for, because there's a crazy portion of every fan base.
100%.
I spent more money on football last year than I ever did at any year, and I had more empathy for fans last year than at any point. Maybe even particularly leaving that Boston College game. But I mean, that's part of it. When you spend the money and you invest in it, not only emotionally but financially, you're like, why can't we have something nice to hold and be ours, right?
I mean, I'm the biggest sucker, Joe. I traveled 8,000 miles last year for football alone.
I totally, and you're not alone, and that's the thing.
Right.
I don't. You say, "Oh, I know the fans." I do know the fans, and most of them are very rational. They just want to enjoy something. They want to have success. And it's really hard in this area when Carolina and Duke have had, their success, and it's hard when you want to just say, "Yeah, but," and then you can't have it, right?
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
So is Dave Dorn a top 4 ACC football coach?
I mean, now you're going to make me think about who's actually still in the ACC. I mean, I think Dave Clawson is the best coach in the ACC.
Okay.
Interesting.
A game day type deal.
Well, I'll give you a hint, Joe. If Mike Norvell is in your top 4, then you and I are going to have some problems.
No, I wouldn't put Mike Norvell there.
Not yet. No way.
Who else is in? There's been so much change.
So much movement. Right?
And Pat Narduzzi. So it's typically Pat Narduzzi, Dave Clawson, and Dabo Swinney and Dorn that, at least to me, are in my top 4 and in most people's top 4.
Dabo. Yeah. Keep an eye on the guy in Louisville. He can really coach. Brom.
Jeff Brom. Mm-hmm. Yep. So, yeah.
College can really coach it. He's an in-game coach, too. Halfley. There's different things, right? Like if we're talking about the portal and managing your players and developing players and put them in the NFL, then Dave's in the top 3 in terms of like game day decisions and in-game coaching. I don't know if I'd put him that high, but identifying talent, I'd put him pretty high. Right? The resources that he has, doing what he can at a program that's historically a 500 program. Yeah, I'd put him pretty high. Again, I think Dave, in year 10, it's a matter of understanding what he is and accepting what he isn't.
Yeah. Before we continue, I want to take a quick second to tell you about our sponsor, Flatlands Jessup Insurance Group, that has your whole world covered, with agents in 5 offices throughout eastern North Carolina to help you decide how much coverage you need, offering policies for home and auto, recreational vehicles, commercial, crop, health, life, and employee benefits. They are able to combine options to find a comprehensive solution that works for you. Flatlands Jessup protects the things you love so you can spend less time worrying and more time enjoying them. Find them on Facebook and Instagram at Flatlands Jessup. You can also visit their webpage at www.flatlandsjessup.com. So please make sure to go and check them out. Well, and I'm 100% in agreement with you that us at Tuffy Talk have always been Dave Clawson truthers, being like, and we love Dave Clawson so much that we honestly hate Wake Forest fans being like, you don't even understand how good of a job this guy is doing with absolutely nothing, potatoes, my friend. Like, you have given him nothing, and he has given you great season, NFL talent. He's giving you everything. So that's the thing, that's the biggest bug. But I did want to ask you, though, I mean, obviously up until this point, I think it's without MJ fully saying it. I mean, I would say he's pretty much locked in, new truck, he definitely involved in Savage Wolves. To me, I feel like that, honestly, if it stays true that basically MJ has bought into, more than likely, again, and let me know if you think differently, that Brandon Armstrong will be the starting quarterback for NC next year, and then give MJ an opportunity to learn the offense, to develop, to get stronger, to get healthy. To me, that would be one of, I think, Dorn's biggest victories. I wouldn't necessarily say all time, but definitely in recent history, just because of the fact that, I mean, with the talent that MJ showed last year, it would have been just a cut and paste, a guy that's very, very good, who's now getting overrun by a senior quarterback. Yeah, no, he's gone. Like guaranteed. Just go ahead and write it. I've seen it a million times. He's gone. And so, I mean, to me, I think that you kind of said that identifying talent, but also too, just holding on to talent. Again, Peyton Wilson's sticking around. I mean, there really has, like, it almost seems like every single year it's been Doran almost having to push guys out just because, like, listen, guys, we only have a certain amount of scholarships. Somebody has to go. Like, we don't want you to go, but it's just there's numbers here. So, I mean, would you kind of agree with that assessment about MJ? And would you agree with me saying that, I mean, Brennan Armstrong more likely will be the starting quarterback for Penn State next year?
Yeah, I expect Brennan to be the starter. It'll be interesting to see what happens with MJ. I would love for him to be able to redshirt this year and come back, be a starter, full grasp of the offense, and be super comfortable with what he's doing, be healthy in what he's doing. That'd be awesome, quite frankly. And if he chooses after not playing or whatever happens this year, I wouldn't blame him either way. Again, that gets down to the choice of where do you see your path to success, and what do you want? What is your ultimate goal? I think MJ, there were a couple times, I think it was the weight game, which he ultimately did get hurt in, right, where he got popped a couple of times because he thought he was still football and was going to outrun some people, and he got hammered a couple of different times, but that's part of learning. And he showed some talent. He showed some moxie. I really wanted to see him start on the road. That was the one thing out of the sample size last year that I really just wanted to see. Probably finishes that year. You say, MJ, you're our quarterback. You give some NIL money to him, and then you go out and get a receiver for him. Or you go out and get a left tackle, whatever might be the case. But the way that it turned out, with Armstrong and NI, it was a pretty smart move. Now, can you keep MJ and have him ready to go next year? That would, like you say, that would be a really good plan for NC State if they could pull it off.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, unprecedented move. Again, just like we were saying, I mean, just in today's day and age, it's not really something that's seen a whole lot. But I do gotta say, Joe, kind of, talking about last year, it was funny that I still remember when I can't remember who was talking about. It wasn't me, but somebody was, talking about, how typically, most of it, Dave Doran's years has been, an 8-4 season, give or take. And I remember you saying the bar for that last year should be way higher than 8-4. I remember messaging you guys when you were doing the tournament where you guys, people would call in and give their predictions of records and who they were going to lose to or whatever. And I said 13-1. We're going to go 12-0. We're going to win the ACC championship, but we're going to lose to Alabama in the college football playoffs, and that's how it's going to go. And man, did I get my teeth kicked in very early against ECU. Like that, I've never felt that way before in my life. Like with so much excitement that we just beat ECU at ECU, but with so much like, what the heck just happened? Was so much like sadness, being like Leary looked terrible. Like it shouldn't have even come to that. It was just. Yeah, it was the weirdest year last year for sure. But I mean, did you kind of get a sense early? Because like to me, I kind of looked at it as, okay, maybe that was just a fluke, just a one-off, but hopefully we'll get out of this rust and we'll get back rolling. Or did you kind of see that as kind of a writing on the wall that it seemed to kind of start to turn into a little bit?
Yeah, ECU was a giant red flag. But they were
okay.
But yeah, no.
Yeah, it didn't look good. No. Go ahead, Greg.
No, I was just going to say record-wise 8-4, but you look how you got to 8-4. So do you call that a success?
Sure. I thought it was a good season. I thought they were good to get to 8-4 with the way that it unfolded. But the Clemson second half to me was not good. The Syracuse game just was a
frustrating
punt on trying to win the game. Again, Boston College was stupid. They beat Wade.
Again, the UNC. I think the UNC win. The UNC win was the game. If we didn't beat UNC, the whole season would have looked a lot different. I feel like.
Correct. So 8-4 with wins over Wake and Carolina. You go, okay.
And ECU at ECU again. It wasn't pretty, but I'll still take it all day long against ECU. So kind of going into this next year, I think that a lot of people kind of look at it as, okay, I mean, obviously Vegas has us at 6.5 wins right now, which, basically is saying that, they'll expect you basically to be fighting to be bowl eligible. And definitely looking at the schedule this year, it's tough in terms of who you're playing, but I really do feel like that the toughest games that we play are at home between Notre Dame, Clemson, Miami. And obviously starting off against Notre Dame at Carter Finley, the first time seeing the scoreboard and the sound system noon on ABC. It's gonna be crazy, and it's gonna be an awesome environment. I can't wait for it. So I mean, like, what would you kind of put your expectations for this season as? And I mean, would you say that 8-4 is far fetched, or that's within reason?
Well, I think you never really go against Vegas. So 6-6, 7-5 feels about. I also think you got to remember this is a down year cycle for Dave, and in his down years, they've been 4-8 and 3-9. So 6-7-5 would, as I like to say, would be his best worst year. So that would also show a strange sign of progress for him. It's just one of those years. I think the schedule is tough. And I do think there'll be some adjustment there at offense. I'm really worried at receiver is where I'm primarily worried. And offensive line too. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But I think there's probably going to be some games where they look really good. And then there's probably going to be some games where you go, uh-oh. To me, that feels like 6-6.
Yeah. But do you kind of take it as, Joe? Because at least for me, I kind of took it that the fact that Doeren basically got one wide receiver transfer from Clemson and then just kind of stuck with it. Like, do you kind of take that as maybe that Doeren felt confident in the room that he had, maybe more than us fans who aren't at practice, who aren't in meeting rooms, who aren't watching the film like he is, maybe see?
Could be.
Could be.
In the spring game or the true freshman. So we'll see.
Right.
Yeah, and I guess for me, the wide receiver room, there's lots of names that you've been hearing about for years, right? The Julian Grays, the Anthony Smiths, the Porter Rooks. Terrell Timmons. Like, those are guys that were highly recruited, but they really haven't, for whatever reason, shown out on the field. And I know some of those guys have been sitting, on the depth chart, but I feel like this could be a year where, like to Leighton's point, where there's more talent than we're really giving it credit for, especially in this type of offense where, it's the, air raid, and it's not going to be, a halfback pass for 2 yards or a tight end screen 5 yards in the backfield. Like, I feel like we're going to open it up a little bit more, not to throw shade to any previous coordinators, but kind of what are your thoughts there, Joe?
Let's hope so. I think.
Yeah.
Opportunity for improvement is in play calling.
Right.
Absolutely.
Because I felt like we got ourselves behind the chains way too often last year, and that, we threw way too many times to the sticks or like 2 yards short, and like, okay, wide receiver, go make a play. And I think some of that was just play calling, and I get it. We were down to our third and fourth string quarterbacks on some of that, so that definitely probably affects play calling with lack of reps. But I feel like in this offense with Anai, looking at his past, his pedigree and his past stops, I feel like this is going to feel different. But maybe I'm just bullish because I'm a guy wearing red and white right now.
I like it.
Yeah. Optimism. Yeah. So last thing, Joe, to kind of wrap this thing up. So what would you say that are the keys for Doeren and NC State football next season to be successful? That if Doeren is able to pull off a great season at 8-4, pull off a couple upsets, things like that, what are some of the things that he would have to do in order to get that done?
I think the receivers would have to show us something that we don't know yet. I think the offensive line will have to be better, and I think the play calling will have to be better. I think the defense is going to be fine. I think Brennan's going to be fine. I just think there's some concerns there who's actually going to make plays for the offense. And if you're going to try to run the ball, which I'm not sure they're going to, then the offensive line needs to improve as well.
Yeah, That's true. Well, and that's why I think that maybe with the running back situation, having guys that are, great kind of elusive backs, kind of, shorter but very quick step guys like Michael Allen and Jordan Houston, I think it kind of makes sense for that, just like you were saying. So it'll be interesting to see what the offense looks like. But all right, Joe, again, thank you so much again. Really do appreciate your time. Thank you so much again for coming back on again. Just like we have every single year, go ahead and book us, late May, early June 2024. We'll reach back out to you once again and have you back on. And hopefully by that point, you and Ovies are continuing to kill it and enjoy it on the YouTube side. And we'll be definitely cheering for you, and definitely wish you and Ovies all the best for sure in that endeavor, which seems to have gone great so far.
Appreciate you, Leighton. Appreciate you, Greg. And see you guys Carter Finley Stadium when the season starts.
Let's do it.
I know. Looking forward to it. Thank you all so much again for tuning in with us. If you don't mind, for us and for the OG, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell. If you enjoyed this conversation, hit that like button and give us a follow. Tuffy Talk Now on Twitter and Instagram. And go give our guy, Joe Giglio, if you haven't already, which I don't know why, a follow on Twitter as well. And thank you all so much for tuning in. And go Pack, y'all.
Go Pack.